There are a lot of Jews who have no affiliation whatsoever. And in fact, statistically, most Jews are not religious at all. And there's a very strong showing, really a few times a year. That's the time that we're entering into right now, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And even Jews who have zero affiliation, very little, a lot of times they just show up during this time. Some don't even show up during this time, but there are many who show up during this time. Look, one could argue some is better than none. You could say, at least they're showing up now a little bit, right? The problem is a lot of times the places that they show up to aren't even, they don't have proper services. We'll call them, they don't have proper prayers. They don't daven properly. They change the text of what they're supposed to say. It's done in an environment that is not according to halacha, proper Jewish law, in many ways. But notwithstanding that, what could we compare this to? Well, before we compare it to something, we have to realize, it's not what is expected of us. In our religion, we're expected to show up every single day. We're expected to pray 3 times a day, daven 3 times a day. We're expected to set aside time to learn Torah every single day, to be involved in mitzvos every single day, keep the Torah every single day. Before we eat and drink, we recite a bracha, etc. Not just a couple times a year. But what can we compare this to? The Dubna Maggid was once informed about this, that there were people who never came to Shul at all the entire year, and they had no interest, but during this time of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which is called by many the high holidays, because you get very high, lofty. I'm not talking about high on weed, but okay. So they came to Shul, but not only did they come, but they had their talis on, and it looked like they had a lot of emotion, and they put a lot of meaning into what they were saying. So the Dubna Maggid Kedarko said, Mashal Lamahadavadoma. To what could this be compared to? By the way, before we go into this mashal, this analogy, to bring out this point, I would just like to say that there is more we'll call table talk discussion on Rosh Hashanah, Divrei Torah, ideas you could say over at your own table, original recordings on rabbiblon.com under the Yom Tovim section. There's 6 different recordings as well as the PDF file next to it, written down summary of what was said, so you could just print it right out. Or if you don't want to spend time listening, you could just have it print it right out. This is completely new material, something that we never discussed before. So the Dubna Maggid said, there was once a very wealthy merchant who was very honest, and he went above and beyond when it came to conducting his business properly. The problem is that his business establishment, his location, everything burnt down. He was left with absolutely nothing. He had a lot of right, you get the debits and the credits, right? You get the revenue, you got the liabilities, right? Costs and expenses. He had a lot of expenses and he wasn't able to make any more money. No more revenue was coming in because everything burnt down. It was burnt toast. It's crisp. At that time, one of his suppliers said, you have to pay me. You owe me money over here. So excuse me. So he apologized. He said, I can't pay it. He said, I can't pay it. Everything burnt. I've got nothing over here. After he discussed this with some of his good friends, he decided that he's going to call this individual that he owed money to creditor and present his difficulties, and then maybe he would have some mercy on him and understand and be patient till he was able to recoup all the losses and start all over again, build new. But when he came to the creditor's private office, so the merchant, his courage just failed. He just couldn't do it. And he stood outside and he was just couldn't do it. Now, the wholesaler who we owed money to, he couldn't help but hear that he was outside. And he came and asked him, "You look something's bothering you. What's going on?" He said, "I have a good reason, because I can't settle my accounts with you. I have nothing to pay over here. I owe you a lot of money, but I'm aware I can't pay it over here. You a tremendous amount, and it's weighing on me." So the creditor, the wholesaler, he understood what was going on over here. And he comforted and said, "Look, we've been doing business together for many, many years. I'm going to cancel these debts. Let's start new, clean balance. And once you're ready, you start buying from me again." The agreement was sealed over a glass of wine, and he went home and he was very relieved. He told his neighbors about the exceptional consideration that he had, and how special this creditor was, how generous he was. Now, one of the people who heard this story thought, "Wait a second, I'm deserving of the same treatment." So he went to the wholesaler's place of business. He put himself right by the door and he started moaning and groaning, and he waited for the door to open up. When the owner of the establishment came out, man told him that he'd come upon bad times and he was in urgent need for a large loan. The wholesaler laughed at him. He says, "This is unbelievable. You're a stranger I've never heard of before, and you ask me for a loan? You gotta be kidding me." So the owner responded, and he said, "Am I any worse than the merchant who you were so generous to the other day?" So the wholesaler looked at him and he said, "How could you compare your situation with your friend? He's a man of truth and integrity. I've known and dealt with for many, many years. And throughout all of the years, I saw that he was so honest in business and dependable, and he always paid it on time. And now that he had a misfortune, it's only fair that I should allow this to happen. And I help him out over here. He's not trying to take advantage of my generosity. He's going through a difficult time. But I've never seen you before. What right do you have standing in front of my door, putting on a show and expecting me to give you money in return?" Explains the Dubna Maggid, this is the difference between people who are pious and consistent the entire year. They come to Shul 3 times a day, every single day. Keep the Torah, keep the mitzvos every single day. Versus those who just show up a few days a year. And they just come in for Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. Pious, the righteous Jew, he's anxious all the time to obey the commandments of Hashem. And he goes to Shul every single day, 3 times a day. He uses all of his spare time to learn Torah, to perform more mitzvahs, to give more charity. He considers this entire world this world he views only as a hallway, a vestibule to go to the next world. That's going to be the grand ballroom. Therefore, if unintentionally and against his will he became guilty of some transaction, or it happened to have been that occasionally his evil inclination got the best of him, his Yetzer Hara, and he sincerely repents, he's going to be forgiven. Because all of the credit which he already amassed in heaven, in the heavenly register, proves that he would never sin on purpose, that he would not seek forgiveness only to sin the next day. He already has a built-up relationship for years over here. He's reputable. He's honest with his business. But the high holiday Jew, on the other hand, the guy who shows up just a few times a year, he's like the foolish man who is crying, moaning and groaning and wailing in vain before the wholesaler's office door. All year long, he has very little to do with Hashem. You won't find him in Shul during the year. Judaism, Jewishness, little interest in him. In fact, he's more interested in the other holidays that aren't even the Jewish holidays and celebrating them. Then, when Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur comes, the high holidays, he suddenly turns religious. Comes to Shul, he makes himself all holy, so to say. Shows how devout he is. Covers his head with his talus. Smacks his heart. Moans, groans, cries. But all this is nothing. He's got no records. He ain't gonna get no loan. He's not gonna get a loan forgiveness. His past conduct certainly does not indicate a sincere desire to do better in the future. And therefore, no matter how much he weeps and cries in Shul and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, his debt cannot be completely canceled in the heavenly register. That's the idea. You know. Someone once said that as a joke that they only show up three times a year because they go to shul. They see how long it is. They said, how on earth do the religious Jews sit through this every single day?
Right.
Little did they know that they're, mincha, ma'ariv, you're there 15 minutes, you're in and out. But this is still nevertheless a very important point. Probably should have said the joke first to open it up with something less intense, but
Next time.
it's okay.
You speak to you give the word by the shul.
The Tim and Kamar, yeah. This is something nice. This is something to say in a place where you think maybe you could have an impact on those people who are only coming twice a year. And you think that maybe someone will listen. That's who you say this to. That's why this maybe maybe someone will watch this.
Also the regular Jew who has them have more of a connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu.
Yeah,
More year round.
yeah, especially for those,
Mm-hmm.
maybe someone will watch us and they'll say, maybe I shouldn't just go twice a year. You never know. You never know. All right, anyways, everyone have a wonderful day.
The joke with the mice problem.
Oh, nice, man.
So there was a town that had a mouse, but problem
Yeah.
mice.
Yeah.
They didn't know what to do, And so the Orthodox and the conservative and the Reform schools got together and just trying to figure out how to work out the problem. And they said, okay, let's meet in a month from now, and let's see how we do. And the Orthodox still have the problem, the mice still around, the conservatives still have the problem. Well, the Reform saying, we don't have a problem. And they go, what'd you do? Because we made the mice members. They only come back 3 times a year.
Yeah, very good, very good. Good, that's a good one. Yeah.